Sound design was a very important element to help realize the movie, and I knew that well before pre-production.
All the skates, sticks, pucks, goalie moves is all sound effects. It's all sound design.
50 golf, take one. Hey, Mark.
The sound team is basically broken up into three parts. There's the production sound that was recorded on location, and that person's job is to get the best production dialogue that he can under the circumstances. After that, it's the sound editor's job to take those sounds, clean them up, record sound effects, design sound effects. After that, it's the re-recording mixer's job to put those together and make a movie out of it. We want to enhance the picture as much as we can, and then we want to give it a sense of hyper-reality. We want to take it into a cinematic realm.
In previous hockey movies, a lot of the skating sounds would be done by Foley artists who would have like skates in their hand and just kind of be watching the movie and shushing around like that, and it's done. But in this movie, Gavin wanted to hear everything. He was going for authenticity, and it was great.
I remember when I saw Saving Private Ryan in the storm Omaha Beach, and I remember the sounds of that battle. And it was important to capture that feeling for an audience of what it's like to be in the middle of a hockey game.
I'm a big fan of sound, and I cut a lot of it myself while I'm working. just to understand the picture, I put a lot of sound against the picture, and we had all of that available to us as we were cutting the picture, just cutting the picture. So I could temp in a lot of that stuff. We got it in really good shape, and then those guys just took it to like a whole nother, level.
And Rob Noakes did a great job with that. He was really sort of scientific in his approach, and another mad scientist.
When you're in an arena, there's so much volume of air, the Doppler of people passing by, the reverb, it's all diffuse sound. So if you were to experience that in a cinema, it would be all this big mushy nothing. So it's not a real true hockey experience, and it certainly doesn't sound like Saving Private Ryan. So for that reason, we shot tons of material, onboard skates, Doppler skate bys. I adapted these microphones. They're little tiny binaural mics, so you can place them here, you can place them here, you can place them here, wherever you like to get the best sound. So this gives us an onboard recording that we can then put in sync, so the player's not floating with no sound. Rob went out and did a lot of recording up in Canada. I went to Manitoba. I rented a dome rink that's sort of like an old aircraft shell, and we got great material there because we could close the entire rink off to get really pure, clean sounds. I had 7 microphones arranged around the rink to capture numerous sounds that then we can then apply while we're cutting the sound of the movie. It was a very complex mix, and you'll hear how this track is built element by element and then put together into the final mix that you hear in the theater. So this is what we started with. Get ready! As you can see, we started out with limited production sound. When we received the picture, Michael McGee, the location sound mixer, had 16 microphones on the players, which provide us with their voices. However, we didn't receive crowd or on-ice action, so we had to create that from scratch. Watch point! A lot of detail went into the creation of the voices of the players on the ice. We wanted to make people feel there was a war going on, as if they were in bunkers and in trenches. In the final ADR stage, we hired former pro hockey player Vashi Nedomansky, who could speak 5 languages, and he led the group in creating the authentic foreign voices.
Johnson with it now.
Al Michaels and Ken Dryden's voiceover is the glue that helps tell the story to non-hockey fans.
Harlamov with a long pass to Mikhailov. Yes, yes! Over the blue line to Petrov right in front.
Mixed stems are basically a collection of all the sounds of a certain element folded down and mixed into one set of tracks.
At the point.
This is the final dialogue mixed stem that we end up with after we combine the voiceover, the production dialogue, and the ADR on the ice.
Ramsey moves it ahead to Pavlich. Get ready! He moves through the neutral zone. Ooh, and he's running to the boards by Bill Yeletinov, and the Soviets clear with 3:50 to play in the game.
We cover the main player's skates on camera, Every skate stride is cut exactly in sync with the exact move that the player makes. This is a traditional tuck blade, which is what the Americans wore, and this is a T-blade, which the Russians didn't wear, but it gives you the sense of much crisper, weightier skating. The Russians at the time were a phenomenal team, large, great skaters, and much bigger than the Americans. So if you have a 210-pound skater on this skate, this would sound like a 450-pound skater on this skate. Here are the sticks, pucks, and goalie saves. They're isolated, and they contain the most reverb. They're the loudest sounds that we're going to hear during the games. A lot of detail went into making sure that every pass and shot and save was in sync with what we see on screen. The boards and glass sounds are my favorite sounds because they put the audience right into the arena. We recorded the audience shaking and hitting the glass. We got some really excellent stuff that way. At the Agrodome in Vancouver, Gavin arranged for Elliot and myself to record the 4,000 extras. We wrote a script for the first AD, Pete White, and between shots, he would get the crowd going and recreate scenes in the movie. And that's part of the reason why we had such great crowd sounds.
When we get that chant going, USA! USA!
Music supervisor Brian Ross and composer Mark Isham create the music stem.
Welcome to the scoring session.
It's either Norway or the highway.
I think the horns can probably be more the forte towards the end of 28. Da 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 is all pretty loud.
Gavin and I, one of the reasons that we just took to each other to want to work together right from the beginning was neither one of us is a big fan of overselling anything, of going emotionally over the top. And we both really agreed on that style. So even though it was going to be a big score, a very emotional score, we knew our aesthetic and how to use that size and how to use that emotional thrust was going to be very sympathetic.
The re-recording mixers, Mike and Myron, created a remarkable blend of all these competing interests.
In the end, we could have anywhere from 300 to 400 tracks of raw elements that my job is to sift through, bring down to a workable form for final when we go into the final stage of mixing with Gavin.
5 minutes to play in the third period. Kasatarov leaves it for Mikhailov. Mikhailov moves it over to Harlamov. Slap shot! Knocked away by Craig!
You know, there are a few what I call design moments where we leave reality. For the start of the third period, there was so much noise throughout the movie that we wanted to try to go almost internalized with the moment. And we did a little bit of sound design there and created a slowdown where the entire crowd slows down to nothing and it's totally silent. And then you come in with the puck drop. Puck drop lands at normal speed, and then we boom, it brings us right back into reality.
Ramsey with the puck, up to Johnson.
Now this is a real puck, okay? And doesn't really make much sound. Even if you drop it, slap it, doesn't make a lot of sound. So for the puck drops, for puck spinnings, we actually used a weight. And you could spin this, you could flip this, you could drop it, and that's how we got the sound of the pucks.
When you watch this film, when you listen to the crowds, when you watch the hockey, it's very transparent. When somebody in my field does their job well, you don't really notice it.
And that's actually my biggest fear in this movie, is that people are going to think the skates and the sticks are production. And they're not.
It's funny because we would watch this thing, and even though, I mean, we're pretty seasoned veterans and we work in a lot of different, we'd all get misty. It's such a pleasure to work on such a great project, and helping recreate it this way has been a great experience.